This is CEDAW in Law from 10 Downing Street. I'm handing over to the Honourable Dr. Jocelyn Scott AO, who will say a few words about mediation.
I'm Jocelyn Scott with a letter from CEDAW in Law to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom to say that there are three principal issues upon which CEDAW in Law relies for the proposition that the government should come to mediation with the women born in the 1950s so that this dispute in terms of the 1995 Pensions Act, which changed women's date of receiving the state pension from 60 to 65. Those three issues are: one, age discrimination explicitly directed at the women who were born in the 1950s. Two, sex discrimination because women were born in the 1950s were treated in a way that the decision redounded negatively against their interests. And three, the issue of delay in notifying the women born in the 1950s that they would not get their pension at 60, as they were entitled to believe. They had a legitimate expectation that they would be notified because this was a decision that went against their economic interests. So this is the letter to the Prime Minister. And on those 3 points, sex and age, the women of the 1950s were put in the invidious position because of their sex and because of their age, born in the 1950s, where they had to rearrange their retirement arrangements, they had to rearrange their job position, they had expected to leave their job at 60, they had to scrabble about and find another job to bear the economic burden that they had, the right to have an income to live until they got their state pension, or to beg their current employer, may we stay on. And as for the delay in notification, some figure seems to have been plucked out of the air that 90% of the women knew that the change was coming. Well, if 90% of the women knew, we want to know, one, where the figure came from, two, we want to know when did these 90% of women know, and three, in my opinion, it's a ridiculous proposition because one can say that 100% of the women knew when they hit their 60th birthday and they didn't get it. But how does that figure help in any way when we know 1950s women were confronted with age discrimination, with sex discrimination, and with delay that impinged on their legitimate expectation to know that this change was coming? This letter, therefore, is to the Prime Minister to say mediation is the issue. There is a dispute on hand. There is no need for legal action to be taking place in the courts, which is wasting the court's time, which is using up money, when the rule is that one can and should go to mediation before legal action is instituted, with the costs that incurs and the burden on the courts. We know that the courts are overburdened and we do not want the courts to be overburdened anymore, and the Prime Minister should not be acceding to a position where the courts are overburdened. Therefore, mediation immediately. Thank you.
Over now to Member of Parliament Ian Byrne MP to say a few words.
I think Jocelyn just outlined lots of reasons why I'm getting inundated by constituents on this issue. I've got thousands of 1950s women who've been affected. I supported this campaign before we were in government, when we were in opposition, and I support this campaign now we're in government. I think mediation's the right way to go. It's getting called for by a lot of MPs, including John McDonnell, at the recent debate in Parliament, and I think lots of MPs feel as though that's the way forward. So the call for mediation is a true one, it's a just one, and I think it's where we need to be. So the letter to the Prime Minister is outlining that today.
Thank you, Ian. And veteran lobby correspondent, award-winning investigative journalist, Mr. David Hankey.
Well, the reason why I'm here is I've covered this story for about 6 or 7 years, and the time really for it to be resolved interest is now, not actually any further delay. Already, a few 100,000 women have died before they can get their pension, or rather the compensation for their pension. And frankly, mediation seems the simplest, straightforward way to get this done, and it will allow people to have a better retirement, more money and they are owed it. And the sooner this is sorted, the better. Otherwise, I think it will be a stain, I'm afraid to say, on both the Tory government that delayed this in the first place, and now the Labour government, which is doing the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, very important persons today. Much appreciated.